Hey everybody! Welcome to Wednesday Stash, where I share ways to help you keep your food for longer. Um, it's October here. Well, it's October everywhere, but here in North Carolina, um, it's yeah. I love this time of year. I love the fall. And we've been talking about drying food. That's what our focus has been on, drying food. But it's kind of interesting. In my part of North Carolina, it has been so humid. It has been really, really humid. So I'm going to talk about a way to that you might find useful in storing your dried foods. Um, so um, Humidity, just like humidity, it kind of wilts us. It might make you feel, icky, sticky, and all of that. Um, Humidity can shorten the shelf life of your dried food. Um, so you want to keep shelf stable dried food. I have some dried pumpkin here that I dried not too long ago. I have some dried pumpkin seeds, from that same pumpkin that I have, this was dried last week. So you want to keep them cool and you want to keep them dry so that you can extend that shelf life. Because nobody wants moldy, like if you have dried jerky. Nobody wants moldy jerky or um, moldy fruit leathers. You have something growing on your fruit leather or vegetables. This is pumpkin. Vegetable. You don't want the moisture to cause it to spoil or rot. When you dry foods, remember the reason that you're drying the food is because you're trying to remove moisture that foodborne illness and spoilage um, causing microbes. You want to remove it. So that's what makes it shelf stable. There's not enough moisture for things to grow on it. But if it's humid or if you're allowing it to be exposed to moisture, you can shorten the shelf life in there. So keep in mind when you have a dried food like this, every time you open it to remove some, if you're not using all of it, every time you open it, you're allowing moisture. There's moisture in the air that can get into the jar. So, or every time you go and you open up your package of whatever the dried food is, you're allowing moisture in, and that can shorten the shelf life. So, some people, decide to use some of these things, and I had the camera so that you guys could see a little bit better. Let's see. um, but do you know what these are? What these little packets are? Desiccants. Okay, so and basically, a desiccant is a substance. It absorbs water. Go up a little bit. Desiccants absorb water, and um, the most common type, if you can see this is a very common type. It says silica. So this is the most common type, and but you see on there it says throw away, do not eat. Silica is non-toxic, but you still don't want to consume it. Now there are other desiccants, and these desiccants, they don't say. This one says contains. This is silica also, harmless, but it says do not eat. This one, let's see, best kept, doesn't say what type it is, but it does tell you don't eat it. This is the same. There are other desiccants out there that are used with food, and you don't want to eat the packet because it might not be non-toxic, might cause stomach upset or vomiting or diarrhea. So if you, with these little packets, just make sure you don't eat the contents or allow somebody who might eat the contents. Um, you know, just take care. Don't let anybody get into these. But what they do is they dry water. They take up excess water. So you might be familiar with the type of desiccants that are put into closets or basements to absorb excess moisture there, and like you might be little pellets or gel that you put into a cup, and then once all of it's gone and you're left with a container of water, you're going to pour that water, discard that water, throw away the container, or discard it, refill the container so it can absorb more water. Well, that's a desiccant as well. It's like this, but that's the kind you would use in the closet. This kind you would use in, say, a food storage jar or a food storage bag, and you could drop a packet on the bottom. Go ahead and fill it with your food, and then you can pop another packet on top, and that's so that if there is any excess moisture, the packet's going to absorb to the packet. The food won't be absorbing it, and by keeping the food dry, you keep the quality, and that's going to extend your shelf life. Okay, because over time, like I said, these have a limited capacity, just like that those containers to get rid of moisture in your bathroom or in your closet or in the basement. It can't continually, capture moisture. It's going to have a capacity, and once that capacity is filled, you have to get a new one. You have to. It just doesn't continually do it, and it's the same thing with these. They have a shelf life to them as well. So if you have a jar and you've used all the food in it, moisture packets that you have in your jar, you're going to need to toss those. And when you fill up your food container again with new dried food, you're going to need to use new packets because they don't work over and over again. So the nice thing about it, they're inexpensive. You can get a whole, maybe 100 packets of these or more for a few dollars, and they're easy to find. Also, you can order them online and just look for desiccant or just Google dried food packets, but if you don't remember desiccant, but if you Google it, there are also oxygen absorbers that are available, but I'm not talking about oxygen absorbers. I'm speaking specifically about for moisture. So like I said, they're easy to find online. So if you have containers of food like this, you could use that, but I personally do not use desiccants in mine. What I do is I try to fill the jar up as much as I can, and I put it in a cool, dry place. When I have the pack of seeds, I've been in this a couple of times, and I go in, I remove what I want to remove, and then before I seal the package, I'm going to just roll it to press the air out, and then I'm going to seal it back. So, and that's you can see how the air is all out, and that's how I'm going to store it. And then this way, the seeds stay nice and crisp. They don't go, like stale, mushy on you. Or not really mushy, but just stale, where they're not crisp, they're not good to eat anymore. And then with the pumpkin, I keep it in a cool, dry place. I'm not going to go in and out of this all the time. I'm not going to leave the cap off. Like if I'm going to go get some, I will open it, remove what I want, and immediately put the cap back on so that I'm not giving opportunity for it to absorb moisture from the air. So that's something that you can do. Now, some people, they like to use desiccants because they do long-term storage. They're trying to have dry food, they're trying to store it, have emergency food supply. That's a really, really good idea, to have an emergency food supply. But one of the things that you want to keep in mind when you have that type of supply, you want that to be a part of your food rotation. So instead of preserving a whole bunch of food that you're going to store away for an indefinite period of time, and then an emergency occurs and you're going to go and pull that food out, the quality of the food might have decreased over time, depending how long it's been in there. So not only are you dealing with emergency conditions, which are stressful enough, you're in emergency conditions where you're having to eat food that's not of the the best quality of food that you might not be interested in eating, because it's gone. You know, the nice crisp seeds that you dried, they're not crisp anymore. Or the dried vegetables that you dried, they might have a little bit of something growing on them, or they're just in the texture's wrong, or it's just not good because you know, it's old. It's been around for a really long time. So if you have emergency food supply, rotate it. So every time you prepare something, make something, that's the stuff that goes to the back, and the food that's already there, you bring that to the front. So this is something that you're doing regularly and constantly, and it's a part of your food supply, and you have high quality food available that you're using. But also an emergency where you can't get to food, that food that's in there and you're drawing more on it, that food's of good quality also. So don't have the get it and forget it, you know, especially when you're doing home preserved foods. Now commercially, there are ways that they preserve things that they do with the food, so that it can have this really, really long storage life, and all of, you know, there's just a bunch of stuff as far as removing all of the oxygen, and, you know, making sure that it's staying dry. It's in containers where the quality can last for a really long time. Trying to do that at home requires some special equipment. You know, it's going to require some special things in order to get that same, something you're thinking about keeping for 10, 25 years, something like that. With home preserved foods, when you're building up food stores, look at building up your food stores, and it's built into the foods that you're consuming. So, they call it first in, first out, FIFO. So the first foods that that you've preserved, those are going to be the first that you use, and then as you're preserving, that stuff goes to the back, and you just keep your rotation going, and then that way you can have good quality. The other thing that I'll just point out, make sure when you have dried food like these types of things, cool and dark. You don't want to store this in the window, next to the stove, that type of thing, because you don't want to have it where there's a lot of heat, there's a lot of light. So not only are you wanting to block out the moisture, you want to block out the warmth. Cool and dry is the way that you want to go with home preserved foods, especially your dried foods. You want to go cool and dry. Okay. So that's it for this week's Wednesday Stash. I just wanted to talk to you about desiccants. Are they useful? They're handy? Yes. Do you have to have them? I don't think so. But it's also going to depend on how much you're preserving, the types of food you're preserving, how long you plan on keeping them, how long do you want to store them. So you can decide whether or not this is something that's worth an investment for you. But that's it for this week's Wednesday Stash. Next week, we're going to talk, October is all, we're talking about drying this whole month. So I have dried pumpkin here. I'm going to do pumpkin leathers for next week. I'll show you how to make pumpkin leathers. So that's a sweet treat. But that's it for this week, and I will see you, I won't see you, you'll see me for next week's Wednesday Stash. Take care.